Good morning, everybody. I am so excited to welcome you back to the Cora's Quilts studio here. I've changed locations from our last live stream, and we're in my sewing area right now. And I'm really excited to invite you back into the studio for our first floss tube of the season. Today we are talking about all things cross stitch. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Shelly Kavana and I am a quilt pattern and textile and cross stitch designer. So this morning I am so excited to officially kick off our 2026 floss tube season with what we're calling a WIP parade or a work in progress parade. I know that these are kind of all the fun kids in the floss tube community are doing those. Most of my fellow floss tubers were able to get them done in 2025, but that was not in the cards for us. So this year, we're going to just kick off our first floss tube event with a look at everything that I am stitching on, with the exception of 6 projects that I can't show you yet. I'm dying to show you them, but you're going to have to wait until a little later this spring. But aside from those 6 projects, I'm excited to share with you everything that I stitched in the last year or two, along with some of my Stitchy projects that we've got going on. So I will ask you to bear with me. We're in a new streaming video filming setup. So just like our last video, if there's any hiccups along the way, I apologize. And I just want to thank you for joining me this morning. I hope you have something warm to drink. I have my tea, and I hope you have something fun to stitch on. And let's go over to our overhead view. Now, whoops, and our camera has already slipped a little bit this morning. All righty. And of course, because it feels like a Monday, it's not cooperating a ton, but we're just going to roll with it. So this is actually our first project that I'm sharing with you is actually technically a 2024 finish, maybe 2025. But this is my Summer Haven cross stitch project. And it was inspired by, and it's kind of hard to see with the glare, but it was inspired by our Summer Haven sampler quilt project. And so we went ahead and put the cross stitch together for it. Now our studio lighting is a little funky this morning because it's super bright outside and we can't have our normal windows open at this moment. But we've stitched this on a white 14 count Aida. I wanted this project to be like your classic quintessential cross stitch project. So I went with the classic Aida, and my original intention was to turn this into some sort of a pillow or a framed piece. And the reason why I haven't moved forward with either of those yet is I feel like this project is needing some sort of a border. And I don't know what that border looks like yet. I have a feeling it's green. And if I have to be really honest with you, I am just not crazy about stitching with green at the moment. I feel like I've just been doing too much of it lately. And so this project is kind of waiting on the shelf for a little while until I can figure out what to do with the border. I'm thinking something super classic. What I really want to do is pull out this lovely dark kind of plummy burgundy color and maybe use that for the border as well. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time with our digital mock-ups for me to decide what I want to do color-wise on this border. And then this will be either framed or turned into a throw pillow for our studio couch. Oh my gosh, and someone reminded me today is Tuesday. It feels like Monday, but it is Tuesday. Thank you for letting me know. All right, my other 2024 finish is this cute little ornament called Sugar Pine Place. This started as a Patreon reward. Oops, can we get the angle right there? A Patreon reward for our Patreon subscribers back in December of 2024. And so this project was finished that same year. And what I really wanted to do was turn it into a Christmas ornament. And again, I haven't finished it yet because at the time that I had designed the cross stitch project, I was working on a new fabric collection and I was waiting for the print to come out in order to do the backing of the ornament. So I'm going to finish it as a super simple rectangular ornament. And then here is the fabric that I had designed right around the same time. And so it'll be a lovely little backing for this project. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about, this is, before I forget, this was again stitched on just a simple 14 count white Aida, and I think it's a Zweigart Aida. And I was doing a bit of an experiment. Now, I know that everybody has their own stitching style and their own way of doing, whether you use 2 strands of floss or 3 or 1 or whatever. So I wanted to do a little bit of an experiment with this one. And I think that I stitched this one with 3 strands of floss because I really wanted it to be kind of nice and chunky so that you could get that lovely kind of textural stitched feeling. And I just love how it turned out. And so I didn't share at the time, but all of the colors here in the project were pulled from this Holly and Hearth fabric collection, which is coming out in April of this year. It'll be hitting shops. And so now that I have some in the studio to play with, I'm really excited to get this finished and on my tree for next year. And I had one more finish, well, partial finish, that's kind of in the little quilt related space. And this is my Gingham Girls quilt pattern. Oops, that's got a little spot there that I need to fix. And this little stitchy project was inspired by my Gingham Girls quilt pattern. And this was another one of our Patreon rewards. I think from early in 2025, the pattern was there. And it is just about, I think it's 89 stitches square. I stitched it on just a white Zweigart 32 count Lugana, which I'm quickly realizing is kind of my happy place to stitch. I'm not a huge fan of stitching on linen just because I feel like my stitches are not always flat and even, but I wanted something that was a little bit more of a tighter weave than the Aida, and so the Lugana or the even weave is just my happy spot. So, and if you are a current Patreon subscriber, then you will notice that we have had this year a lot of these projects that are around 89 inches square. And so there is a plan for these that we'll be sharing with, I'm seeing that things are upside down. Hang on just 1 second and let's flip it around. That's the one thing. See, I told you this is a new setup and we're bound to have hiccups. There we go. Ta-da! Sorry about that, friends. I'm over here and I can't see my screen, so I have to remember to get everything switched over. So apologized for the upside downness. We'll get that all squared away in our replay. But for those of you that are Patreon subscribers, you'll see in 2025 that there was kind of a theme of these square quilts that were translated into square cross stitch projects exactly at about, I think it was 89 stitches by 89 stitches. So I'm cooking something up with these designs and they're just not quite ready to show the rest yet. So I hope you'll stay tuned for the rest of the year as we start to kind of roll out what we're doing with these kind of square 90-inch projects. I like these because they are a small stitch, they're a relatively quick stitch, and so it's kind of just a fun way to work on a smaller project in between some of my really big projects. And the thing I like about these quilt pattern inspired projects is that they're kind of easy to memorize the stitch pattern. So I do a lot of my stitching in front of the TV or with an audiobook or a podcast on. And so it's really great. It's really great to be able to stitch on something that I don't have to really closely follow a pattern with. So that makes my brain really, really happy. And so keep an eye for more of these 89-inch or so projects coming out in the year to come and the fun stuff that we are doing with them. So the other project that is kind of lingering in the background is my Winter Haven cross stitch project. For those of you that are sewing along with us this spring, this was the cross stitch project that was inspired by the Winter Haven sampler quilt pattern. So if you are a current Patreon subscriber at the block of the month level, the quilt pattern itself is the pattern that you get for free every month with your subscription. So we're going to start sewing along with this project together. And then for those of you that are Patreon members that get a cross stitch pattern, you get Winter Haven this month as well. And so I am getting myself in the frame of mind to start stitching on my Winter Haven sampler by stitching on the Winter Haven quilt, or excuse me, cross stitch project too. So the thing I love about this project is that it gives the appearance of a rounded shape without necessarily being a super rounded shape. And so it fits really perfectly in an 8-inch round hoop. I'm stitching it on 32 count Zweigart even weave, and I'm stitching with 2 strands of floss over 2 of the fabric threads. And so it'll be really nice to finish in a wooden hoop. I have several round projects that I have gotten round, just simple round wooden hoops to finish them in, wooden frames rather, excuse me. And so I'm really excited to get this one finished as well. I think I stopped because, as you can see, I've got some green area to add next. And for some reason, I am just not feeling green right now. And so I don't know what my issue is. I need to get over it because I have lots of projects that have green on it to stitch. So one of the projects that is not quilt related that I started working on earlier this year is a project by Hello from Liz Matthews. And this was one of her Patreon awards from, I think, 2025, early in the year. Maybe it was late 2024. I don't have my notes right in front of me, but it's called the Busy Hands Happy Heart Cross Stitch Pattern. And it comes both with this lovely framed piece here and this great pillow. And I was watching one of Liz's floss tubes earlier in the year, and she had suggested stitching the project on a really large loose weave linen fabric. And so that's what I have started my project on as well. Oh, and before I forget, I know that we're introducing loads of patterns from different designers, both from my shop and some of the designers that I'm a really big fan of. So once I've seen what order I went through in the video over on our blog, we'll put together a kind of like a show notes link that shows all the projects that we talked about today, along with a link of where you can find them. So should be up by midday today over on our blog. And you can find the link both in the description box below if you're joining us on YouTube, or in Patreon, it should be in the comments as well. So this is my beginning of the Busy Hands Happy Heart pillow. And as you can see, even though I thought that I had measured and centered myself, I definitely played chicken here with the edge of the pillow. I'm not sure what happened there. There is this cute little border that she's included in her pillow, and I am thinking that I am not going to have room to stitch the border, and so I'm probably going to leave that off. So this fabric is a 20 count linen in red pear from Weeks Dye Works, and so I am stitching it let's see, 2/2 with 3 strands of DMC floss in the color Ecru. I love this corally pink color. I use it so much in my spring decorating here in the studio and sometimes at home. Our home is more of a blue color palette. And so here in the studio, I think I'm leaning towards some of these corally pink colors. And so I have a lovely chair in my office that is kind of this kind of khaki grayish color and cream. And so the idea is this will be a nice little throw pillow when I'm done stitching it to sit there. And then I am going to turn it into an oblong pillow and probably frame it with, let's see if I have the fabric nearby. I think that I'm going to frame it with one of 2 prints. And I haven't decided if I'm going to frame the fabric around the front to kind of build out the edges of the pattern, or if I'm just going to leave it as a linen front and kind of a fabric back. And so one of the colors, the prints that I had pulled was this print from my Among the Wildflowers Volume 1 collection. And I just love how that red pear color matches that really dark color here in the print. So one of the ideas that I had for finishing is putting that kind of as a border around the front of the pillow. And then I kind of wanted something bold and fun. And so I think this larger scale print, again from the Among the Wildflowers fabric collection, will be the back of the pillow. So I'm really excited to stitch on this and to get this one finished. So I have to be really honest, linen is not my favorite thing to stitch on. I really struggle with kind of the slubbiness. And even though this is a really large count piece of fabric, sometimes I struggle with my eyesight to like see and count with. So this is like one that I have to use a magnifying glass for and make sure I have good lighting and make sure, this is one of those projects where I do better if I can sit down and work on it in the morning rather than the afternoon after I've been staring at the computer all day. So it's my goal to finish this one and be able to have it out on my chair in my office this spring. So fingers crossed that we will actually get that one accomplished. Now, I love this one so much, and I do love a monochromatic stitch. I do love a stitch against, with really simple thread against a really beautiful fabric. And so I had hoped to actually stitch the framed version of this pattern as well, and with the Busy Hands Happy Heart in it. And I had bought some linen to kind of play around to see what I wanted to do. I love the like wooden frame here. And so I bought all Zweigart. I got a Zweigart Lugana in blush. This one's a 32 count. I got a 28 count fabric in navy. That one's a Lugana, and they're just really beautiful choices. And then I also got this linen in petrol blue, which I have to tell you is my favorite color in the whole wide world. I don't know if it's normal. I don't know if everybody has a favorite color of floss. My favorite DMC floss, hands down, is 3809. And the fact that this fabric is almost the exact color of 3809, like I died. I was so happy with the color. And so that was the color that I had settled on. And I had started my stitch there. And I was trying to decide if I wanted to use, let me get this out of the way. I was trying to decide if I wanted to use the same ecru that I was using here in the pillow, or if I wanted to go with something in a brighter white color. And so I was kind of hemming and hawing on that. And I had cleaned up for the weekend and thrown everything in my cross stitch bag. And it just so happened that when I pulled everything out, all of the floss from my Winter Haven and one other project landed on top of this fabric. And I was like, oh my God, those colors are just out of this world gorgeous against this really dark linen background. Normally, I'm a white gal. I like stitching on a white background, but those colors against this linen piece just blew me away. And so instead, get you out of here. I started stitching my very first Carolyn Manning piece. There she is. And oh my gosh, the colors I am just in love with. So this pattern is Little Garden from Carolyn Manning's Bouquet collection. I'm doing a custom color conversion. I'm using all DMC floss. I am using 3 strands of floss, even though this is, I think it's a 28 count linen, but I am using 3 strands of floss because I really love chunky stitches, and 2 strands of floss was just looking a little blah and a little drab to me. So I'm still in the process of finalizing my colors. And so as soon as I have finished selecting every single color that's going here into the project, then on the blog, I will post a color conversion to share what I am substituting for. This one is really gorgeous, but I just wasn't feeling the oranges in my own work and these kind of lavender tones. And so I'm going with all blues and greens, indigos and teals. And I'm just so much in love with this project. So that being said, it is just really hard for me to stitch on this fabric. You know, it has to be, like I said, I have to have a magnifying lamp and I have to, be awake and in the morning. So this one doesn't see a whole lot of love, but it is on one of my hope to finish this year projects. So I'm going to try and make sure that this is in my stitching bag and that I set aside some time on the weekend mornings to stitch in this, just because the colors, I'm dead. I love it. Love it. All right. As I mentioned, I have 6 projects here that I can't share with you just yet. But one of the projects that I am most proud of finishing this year was my Flower Farm Sampler Cross Stitch project. So many of you are familiar with my Barnstar and Flower Farm Sampler quilts. And so here's the book that this project was based off of. And we went ahead and put together a cross stitch pattern that mirrors this as well. So this was such a fun, satisfying stitch. I spent a lot of time at the very beginning of the stitch putting in all of the border pieces and this lovely little patched framework as well. And once I had all of that in, then it was just a really enjoyable stitch while my kids were at music lessons or sporting events, or whether we were watching soccer on the weekends. It was really easy to just sit down for an hour or two and finish a block or two. So my brain likes having stuff done, checking things off. And so being able to sit down for an hour and finish a block was just super satisfying. So I did work block by block, and I actually followed along the Quilt Along project that we're doing over on the website. So my idea was, if you are sewing along with us, you can also kind of stitch along. So you can piece a quilt and then go over and stitch it on your block. So I'm waiting for my frames to come in, but my big goal for 2026 is to actually finish the Barnstar project. So I'm going to be starting this. If you are interested in sewing along either one of these projects with me, I'm probably going to be starting this next month. And so this project, the Flower Farm Sampler, was stitched on a white 32 count even weave Lugana from Zweigart, stitched 2 strands of thread over 2 strands of the fabric. And so this one is finished, but if you want to stitch along with me, I am getting ready to stitch the Barnstar Sampler Edition. Now this project and the pattern itself is all listed with DMC threads. And here's my start on the Barnstar. So the idea is, between now and the end of February, I'm hoping to have the rest of my framework all built out. And I'm using the framework, I'm using DMC floss for all of the framework. There's my lovely 3809 in the framework. You can see how much I love that color. But for this version, these in my head, these are going to be twin pieces that sit side by side framed on the wall in my office. And for this version, the Barnstar Sampler, I've used DMC floss for the frame, but I am finalizing a custom color conversion of some fancy flosses for for the actual blocks. So I ordered a whole bunch of threads, and I've kind of pulled some of my favorites. And so before I start stitching on this, I am going to publish in case you are wanting to use some of the fancy floss in your stash, or you prefer to stitch with these over dyed colors, I will publish that over on the blog, and I'll have more information. This is not a fancy sew along where we have, deadlines and things that you have to work on in a specific order by a certain deadline. I'm just going to be trying to stitch a block or two a month, maybe 2 or 4 blocks a month. And we've got some of this really lovely variegated over dyed floss. So I just love the color shifts in these. And so I'm kind of finalizing my final. Oh, that's so pretty. Yeah. I'm finishing my finalized color palette. And so by the time I'm ready to start stitching the blocks, I'll have that to share with you. And then if you want to stitch either one of these projects along with me, you can do that. And we'll probably just share some of our photos over on Instagram or over on the blog as well. So that is one of my big projects for 2026 is getting that done. Soccer season starts for us the beginning of March with our local professional team. And so I'll have lots of weekends where they're traveling and I can sit and stitch. So, oh, I forgot about this one. This one slid to the size. I did have one more over the holidays, one more finish. And this is the little owl from Brenda Gervais with Thy Needle and Thread Peppermint and Pine collection. And I believe that I stitched this. I think this is a 30. Do I have the tag on here? I don't. I believe this is a 32 count even weave in the colorway Mushroom. So I'm really trying to kind of branch out and mix up the backgrounds that I use and the color palettes that I use. So I have to be honest with you, I am not a big fan of stitching people. I'm not a big fan of stitching animals, but the one exception to that is birds. And if that bird happens to be an owl, then I am such a sucker for it. I love owls. So I stitched this now. I stitched this on the 32 count, 2 strands of floss over the 2 threads in the fabric. And I wasn't paying attention to the fact that the sample is stitched on, I think it's a 40 count. It's much smaller, the sample, than the size that mine turned out. So I think that I'm going to turn this, I haven't decided if I want to frame it yet or if I want to turn it into a pillow with some fun little rickrack. As I was stitching it, I just loved how well the colors matched against, this is the Yule print from my Holly and Hearth fabric collection. Very similar in color to our main print in the collection, but just a little bit of a smaller scale. And so I'm thinking I'm going to turn it into a pillow and use this as the backing. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to finish it yet. So she has it finished so adorably in 3 individual pillows. But I think when I started stitching on this that I had planned on turning this into like an oblong pillow and stitching all 3 of the birds side by side. So I have enough fabric to do it, and I did the owl in the middle. So I think that's what I had planned in my head, but then I got distracted with some other projects. So we'll see what I decide to do to finish this off. I do really love the cardinal as well, and this cute little bird has some blues in it, which I love. So I have a feeling that this will turn into a joined piece all on the same piece of fabric is what I'm trying to say, and then finished with my Christmas print along the back. So I don't work on a ton of seasonal projects, so this one will probably go in my project bag until October or November when I'm ready to start working on some more like wintry themed projects, but we'll see how it goes. So I did use all of the called for overdyed flosses in this as well, and I just love Brenda Gervais in this pattern gives some suggestions for how to stitch the feathered sections of the birds with the overdyed floss so you get some kind of fun effects. So that was really helpful because this was one of the first projects I did with the overdyed floss. And I just love how the subtle variegation gives you so much depth and feeling. And this was another fun one to sit in front of the TV to stitch because once I got the outline of the owl done, it was pretty brainless stitching, which is kind of my favorite type of stitching. So the other pattern that I picked up from with a needle and thread recently too was the Let It Snow project. And I just loved that it had the same little pine cones and the little bird, and it's got a snowman in a cloche with the same sort of snowflakes all around. So I may turn this into a larger pillow that can sit in the chair. And maybe we'll frame these. I don't know. I'm still kind of playing around with it. So, but I've ordered another piece of the mushroom toned Lugana to stitch this on. So they all kind of go together. They use the same colors so that they'll live really, really nicely all in the same room. So that's my wintry stuff. And again, I probably am going to set this aside until next fall just because I'm ready to move on to some fun stuff. So it seems like everywhere in FlossTube that I've been recently, and I'm admittedly watching some back episodes, I'm seeing Brenda Gervais again with a needle and threads season of the heart pillows. And I just thought that these were so cute. And after having some stitched on some really, really big projects over some really crazy deadlines this last year, I needed some small kind of palette cleansers, if you will. So I started off with the winter version of Seasons of the Heart. And I just, was just so in love with how this project turned out. I love these colors. Strangely enough, these greens didn't bother me as much, but I just love them so much. So I have some little areas in my home where I can put like a little pillow in a little dough bowl on our dining room table, that sort of thing. And so I just love that one so much. And I'm taking a quick peek. I did have a couple of substitutions here because my fabric is a little bit darker. I believe it's a 32 count Zweigart. It's taupe, Zweigart and taupe. It's a little bit of a cooler tone compared to what she used in her sample. And so I wanted to pull in some, and because the fabric is also darker than what she used in her sample, I wanted to pull in some darker tones. And so I used a darker thread. I believe it is Gentle Arts Mountain Mist is what I used for the house. And then I used hickory sticks for the roof just to kind of give it a little bit of a darker tone. And I like this because the blues match my house a little bit better than some of the paler colors that she used. So I'm loving that. We'll finish that in a dough bowl and might even, as I'm thinking about it, might even use the same fabric from the background here. I'll have to play around and look through my scraps to see what I want to use for the backing of the pillow. And then over the holidays, I did, and I'm going to show you this one in a hoop because that's how it is for today. And so I went ahead and got started with the spring Seasons of the Heart as well. And she uses some really light golden colors, which I think looks really lovely against the fabric that she used. But again, because I'm using the taupe, because my colors were a little darker and cooler, this one I think I'm going to do a full color conversion on. I've got this lovely cherry red tone for the house, and it goes lovely with the called for floss for the flowers as well. And I probably will go with the hickory sticks again, possibly for the roof. I have a whole bunch of thread that I've pulled just to kind of give me something that's standing out a little bit more. And then I switched the aqua out here for a darker color as well. So I'm loving these. We usually sit down every few nights and watch an hour TV or so with the kids. And so it's just a nice, easy, quick stitch that I don't have to pay a ton of attention to. It's not complicated counting. It just makes me happy, these tiny, small stitches. So hopefully that one will be done in the next month or so too. So I can get that one framed and actually use it for the spring. So all right, just a few more projects. For those of you who joined me, was that last week? Oh no, I think it was over before the holiday break. We did our first Stitch With Me event on FlossTube, not on FlossTube, excuse me, on Patreon. My brain is tired this morning. We did our first Stitch With Me event on Patreon, where just a cozy hour and a half or so, where we sat down and got kind of chatty and worked on a cross stitch this morning, or excuse me, wow, really struggling here this morning is what I'm trying to say. We sat down and worked on a cross stitch project together for an hour, and it was very casual and comfortable. And so this is an upcoming quilt project that we have called Winter's Crossing. And we have a cross stitch project very much in the style of the ones that I've shown you before, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. And so for this Winter's Crossing project, we're putting together a biscornu, which is it's something that you have to Google if you've never seen before, but it is this clever little 8-sided pin cushion. And they look so stunning. They are so intricate and so fun to put together. And they look like they would be massively complicated. And they are ridiculously easy to put together. So we are going to be assembling this and sharing it as a tutorial here on the YouTube channel a little later this spring. But this is the front and the back side of my Winter's Crossing biscornu. So you can see some of the starry elements that will be in the larger project, the square project. That's the traditional cross stitchy type project. But we've also added in some trailing vines and flowers, and I'm so excited for both of these projects. This was a really fun small stitch, and I've ordered some teal ceramic buttons off of Etsy that I will use to finish that. And I got these adorable little pins that are across the studio that look like little spools of thread with floss around them. So I'm excited to finish this pin cushion a little later on this spring. So I think that the stitch size for both of these are maybe, I think it's 79. Don't quote me, but I think it was 79 stitches square. So it was a quick stitch, and it's nice because the back side of the stitch, you can leave the bottom empty because it's going to have a button in it anyway. So we'll be having that tutorial for assembly coming a little later. So my other really big project that I treated myself to, and we've got some magnetic cord managers that I'm holding my extra floss in, is this Winter Rose Manor. Again, I'm on a with thy needle and thread kick. I love it so much. So this fabric is, do I have it? I believe that it is Silver Moon. It's a Zweigart 32 count Lugana that is ever so gently a cool kind of gray, which I love so much. I am really drawn to cool colors. My home has a lot of cool colors in it, and I just love how well the floss shows up against this project. The floss colors that she chose shows up against this fabric. So I'm really excited about this project. The only thing that I'm really hung up on is what color to do the house in. Because this is a winter project, it most likely will be sharing wall space or decor space with my tiny pillow. And so I love these colors so much, and this kind of pinky tone in there. Do I have the floss? That kind of pinky tone is this gorgeous Gentle Arts color called wood rose, and wood rose is used here in the little pillow piece as well as here in the block. And I am just so enamored with this color. I love it so much. And I ordered a second skein, and unfortunately, I don't have it here in front of me, but the second skein is a much drabber, oranger version of this. And I know that that happens with overdyed, and it's so disappointing because this version is so lovely and has so many of those kind of persimmony colors. So my first thought when I was going through to kind of recolor this project a little bit was to use this wood rose for the house. So I ordered a bunch, several more skeins, and they just are not the same color. And I don't care for the colors that I received, at least not for this project. And so I don't have enough of the thread to do the house in this lovely wood rose fabric. And here's the majority of the rest of the threads for this project. So I'm hoping to kind of crowdsource a solution. I did pull some pinks, which do look really lovely with the colors, the thread colors in the project and the fabric itself. So I pulled, this one is Blushing Beauty from Classic Colorworks. This one is Rose Petal from Classic Colorworks. And then this is a Weeks Dye Work thread called Cherub. Now the pattern itself calls for the house to be done in conch, which for me is just too yellow for the fabric that I'm using and for my personal taste. So I don't want to use the house in that. So I'm thinking of doing one of these colors. And so I'm hoping that you will drop a line in the chat below and tell me which one you would pick. But then I started looking on Instagram and seeing some of the colors that other people were choosing. And another gal, and I'm sorry I don't have her name to tag her in here, suggested Rain Shower by Classic Colorworks. So that is a good choice as well. I do like that color quite a lot. And you can see here's my new wood rose, and it's definitely got a lot more brown than the original. So, and then I was going through my floss, and it was like, okay, if I wanted to have kind of a bold color, I do have several skeins of this Mountain Mist, which I love. I'm not sure if it's the right choice for this project. So that's option, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the last option, if we're kind of sticking with this, and this is kind of the direction I'm leaning, but tell me in the chat, tell me what you think you would go with, is the Mountain Mist from Gentle Arts. And that was the same floss that I used here in the house as well. So I'm thinking of using this combination. I don't know. I think that's where I'm leaning. So I think it's going to be one of these pinks or the Mountain Mist. And here's the rest of the colors. So I just love my little aqua house here so much that I think it's going to be that one, but I don't know. Maybe Rose Petal. I don't know. I'm at a stopping point in the project until I can make up my mind, because I need to start getting the foundation of the house done and I can't decide which color. So drop me a line and tell me which one you would choose and let me know. So that's everything that I have officially started for 2026. I do have some plans for projects coming up. Some of them I can share now and some of them I can't. So we'll keep doing these hopefully monthly to kind of show you where things are. So I'm rounding out my With Thy Needle and Thread Fest with the fabric for Indigo Lean. I bought all the called for floss as well, but I'm not sure how well they're going to go with this light ash Lugana. But I do love all the blues and greens, and I love that it has this adorable little keepsake drum as well. So this is probably going to be a spring or summer stitch for me as well. And then I don't think I've picked a fabric for it yet, but I also kept seeing Comfort and Joy from Plum Street Samplers all over all over the internet this winter. And so I don't think that I've picked a fabric for this one yet. And I have to be really honest, again, I'm not a big fan of stitching animals, but the goose is super cute. And I don't know if I'll add the text in. I'm not a big fan of text in my projects either, just a personal preference. So I'm not quite sure what fabric I'm going to use for this. It might be kind of fun to do it on the darker gray ash as well. And here's the threads. I just thought that those berry colors against the darker gray fabric were really lovely. These greens too. So we'll see. I went ahead and just bought all the floss ahead of time and bought the fabric, and we'll kind of see if we end up using all of the called for or if I work in some of my own fabrics along the line. So we'll see how that ends up. But again, because this is a holiday one, it's probably going to go in my bag. This was kind of a Christmas gift to myself, and it will go in my bag until probably October before I'm ready to start working on the holiday prints. So, and then finally, I got a whole bunch of the Lugana in Silver Moon from Zweigart. I think this is the 32 count. And I love that this is like, it's not a white, but it's a very, very cool gray, and it's very light. And I just am so in love with it. And so I'm thinking that I am going to stitch one of my new cross stitch projects. I haven't decided which one on this yet. So here's the ones that came out for my Seaside Garden fabric collection. Let me see if I have some of the fabric here to show you. But this collection is very different from what I normally design. The color palette is very different. And so I really like it. And I'm really excited to do some of the cross stitch projects because I don't often use those kind of greens. Sorry, had to run across the studio. I don't often use the kind of bottle glass greens and the lilacs and lavenders that are in the fabric collection. So the Meadow Sweet project is just about the same size as our gingham girls. And so this one is pretty high on the priority just because it's such a quick stitch. And I'm not sure which of these or both I want to do. I have some deadlines coming up for other stitchy stuff. And so I think this is just going to kind of go on the back burner for a little while to see which one I actually decide to stitch on. So we do have all three of these patterns now available in our shop. And we just got the floss to go with them. This is a new floss pack that we just put together, and it will work with all three of these patterns. And I just love them against that silver moon color. Just love it. So we'll see what inspiration strikes and see whether I get started on one of these or if I am responsible and finish my deadline sewing first, and maybe my reward will be getting to start one of these. But I just love these colors. Love them together with the fabrics. They're just so yummy. So so goodness. So lots of really exciting things. Oops, hold on. My other cat. Lots of exciting things coming up and happening here in the stitchy part of the Cora's Quilts YouTube studio. So I do want to say thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to kind of share this new part of our business with you, and I hope you've enjoyed it. And we will be updating our blog this morning with our links to all of the patterns that we featured here today. So thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you very soon with some more stitchy projects. Have a great morning.